meeting of the Planning Commission and Airport Zoning Commission for June 3, 2020 is called to order concurrently at 6:12 p.m. Pursuant to Executive Order N25-20 and N-29-20, members of the Planning Commission and staff are participating in this meeting via video link, Zoom, and/or teleconference. This is not an in-person meeting. Members of the public may observe this meeting on the City of Hawthorne website or on YouTube. And then we have the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to ask Senior Planner, Mr. Palmer, if you would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Commissioner. Please stand, symbolically place the flag, put your right hand over your heart, and repeat with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to its republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Oral communications. Now is the time for oral communications. Because this meeting is not an in-person meeting, members of the public who wish to participate in the meeting were asked to participate by calling or emailing the Planning Department no later than 5:30 p.m. today, noting the item on which the member wants to speak. This information was provided on an agenda posted in compliance with the Brown Act on Wednesday, May 27, 2020. At this time, if there were any messages left for oral communication, staff will call the member of the public and place them on speakerphone or read those messages individuals that provided written comment by email. Remarks are still limited to 3 minutes in duration. Staff, is there any participation from the public for oral communications? This is the time for the public to address the Planning Commission and the airport zoning.
Thank you, Chair Smith. We did not receive any requests to participate.
Okay, thank you. Planning Commission and Airport Zoning Commission consent calendar. I see there are no items. We will now recess the Airport Zoning Commission and we'll have the Planning Commission consent calendar. I see there are no items. Continued public hearings. Conditional Use Permit 2018 CU07. Now is the time and place to continue the public hearing to consider Conditional Use Permit number 2018 CU07. Senior Planner Chris Palmer, who presented the staff report on May the 20th, 2020. Does the Planning Commission have any additional questions for staff? This is time for questions of the staff only. Commissioners, you have any questions?
I do.
No? Okay. Is the applicant available?
They are. They're on the phone. So if we can have them join us.
Sure.
This
Please.
is would be Mr. Pornamdari.
Okay.
Through the chair.
Good evening. Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
This is actually Chris Palmer, senior planner. Before the applicant usually gets the last turn to speak, so the public hearing is still open. And after the last public hearing, we continued it, and it was open. And I received an email correspondence from a person that wanted to speak. And so I'm going to just read that into the record, and then the applicant can speak after that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, it says, "Hi all, I just received a letter about a notice of public hearing regarding the sale of alcohol at this location described below," and they're referring to the 3670 Imperial Highway. Without more information, I strongly oppose this. None was provided in this notice, and I have zero opportunity to attend the meeting. The location history is crime, drugs, and alcohol. The last thing we need is a liquor store or anything selling alcohol here. Aside from my opposition, being adjacent next to me is a church and then an elementary school. Please let me know what time we can discuss the day. Thanks. That concludes the letter.
Senior
Okay.
Planner Palmer, is there a name on there? I don't remember if you said who it was from,
Let me see.
just for the record.
The record is Adrian Malin,
Okay. Okay.
and they have a Santa Monica address.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, the applicant may now speak.
They might be muted, it looks like. Is that on his end, it's muted, or is it us?
I cannot unmute him, so it is on his end.
Okay.
Okay,
There
Oh,
you
there
go.
he-
Hello?
Yes, please, go ahead and speak.
Oh, that's my turn?
Yes,
Thank you, Your Honor. It's just, as I mentioned previously, it's gonna be about 2,000 square foot, similar to AM, PM market, plus beer and wine, sale of beer and wine. That's basically what it is.
okay, is that all you want to say?
Yeah, and we read all the staff recommendation, and then we comply, we agree with all the staff recommendation. That's basically what's,
Okay. All right. So is there anyone else who called or emailed wishing to address the commission on this issue?
There was no one else, Chair Smith.
Thank you. Are there any documents to place into the administrative record, such as late communications?
Mr. Palmer read what could be a late communication or a request to speak during the hearing. So we've read it as a request to speak as testimony for the hearing. So no, there's no additional late communication.
Thank you. Do any of my fellow commissioners have any final comments on this item or questions from staff?
Through the chair, oh, sorry, go ahead, sir.
No, you can go first.
I just had a question for the person that had the letter of concern. So if they are a Santa Monica resident, I don't understand how they are requesting more information, or how does that directly impact a person that's residing in Santa Monica?
Through the chair, if I may, the address was in their signature, so I don't know if they actually reside in Santa Monica or they were just using a different address. But they may own property near the subject property, because we send this notice to property owners in the vicinity.
Okay, thank you.
Just to confirm also, yes, it has a Santa Monica address, but it says President and Malin Asset Management, Inc., and the individual was Adrian Malin, and I see that their email address said Malin Apartments. So that's probably, Mr. Palmer is probably correct. They may have some property that's owned here, may own some property in the city.
And then we also have to remember that there were two more comments from the last meeting. I believe that they were emailed to us with two other people that had concerns with the alcohol sales. I had a question for the applicant. I don't remember the square foot size that he mentioned that would be dedicated towards alcohol. I want to get a clarification on that.
we're very flexible, and then we are gonna do like, during the process, once we get the license approved, we got to go through you and the ABC, and then we work with your staff to make sure whatever, restriction we put, we comply with it.
Okay, yeah, because we're trying to condition it to a certain square foot size. So I was just trying to see what square foot size that you were looking into having for this
Be
location.
open to your we agree with your recommendation. I think maybe 25%, if that's okay to you, or whatever you recommend, we follow.
So if you're willing to do 25% commission, that equates to about 500 square feet of space dedicated to the sale or display of alcohol.
That's correct.
Could we do maybe 25%, no more than 300 square feet? In case that they were if they were to enlarge that, space, because it shows that they're only occupying 2 spaces. If they were to occupy, the third unit or and fourth unit, that 25% could be larger than 500 square feet. So I was trying to see if we can put maybe a condition to allow maybe 25%, no more than 300 square feet.
So are you saying 300 square feet for the current configuration, and if it's enlarged, then 25% would be the max?
No, 25%, no more than 300.
Because 25% is 500 square feet. So
Okay.
so you're asking for something less, not equivalent to 25%?
Yeah, because like if they were to like reduce the size of that space or increase the size of that space, they could probably do 25 if it was lower, or the 300 if it's 300 max square
The
foot
300
size.
max square feet of display area, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
I'm just doing
Well,
this. I'm taking notes as we speak.
Because I believe they're occupying 2 spaces, right? And each
Yes.
space is 1,000.
I'm looking at the floor plan right now. Each space is about 760, 790 square feet.
Okay.
So that makes the 25% less than 500 square feet.
Right. So if he uses up to 2,000 square feet for his retail space, then I think the condition could be geared towards using, giving him a max space to have the size of the store, and then figuring out a square footage that you want from there. So if he's open to 2,000, if 2,000 is the number for his store, then would 300 square feet be the number for the commission, or if it's something different? So if you want to do percentages, that's fine. If you want to do a solid square foot number, that's fine too. I think either one of those works.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think I think it makes sense even if it's a percentage, but not to exceed a certain square footage. So
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
that's exactly what I understood. So we can put both as because we don't have the actual size of the store itself, but not to exceed a certain square footage.
Okay. And so when you guys agree on that threshold, if that is the direction of the commission, then that can be put into a condition. That could be put into a condition of approval.
So 300, if it were 2,000, that would be only 15%. If it were 300 out of 2,000, that would be 15%. I mean, I don't know if you guys are okay with that, but I don't know. I'm quite flexible with this.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me. That way we're kind of compromising with the people that are, aren't, opposed to having this type of use located in the area. This is limiting the amount of alcohol that will be provided. and it's not going to be, full blown liquor stores. It's, just a few items, not occupying the whole um, unit. And I know we mentioned last time if we would have a similar condition to the one that we did previously to allow only like the boxed or alcohol in packets or that comes in multiples. Is that something that we're looking to do here as well? This is a question to the commission.
think
Okay.
Chris, you're
There's
muted.
a percentage, and what he can put in there is whatever he can put in there.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I do agree with Jason on that idea of having just the packages. I think that does cut down on the amount of like loose trash that we find around, especially if you have just individual cans that are sold. And like, it prevents people from like, just right outside consumption. It gives you a little bit more of a barrier to that, and preventing a bit of the nuisance. I think that's a good condition to set in there.
Yeah, that is a good point, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what we were going for with that last alcohol license, was to kind of limit, how many people are just hanging out around in the area, consuming the alcohol, or just leaving their trash in the area as well. I mean, if they're going, they would have to buy, multiples and take it home or something like that.
I don't mind with that, so.
All right.
Just-
So,
and-
any of the commissioners have any other comments on this item?
I just had a question about our efficacy around the 25% or 300 feet. Are we is 300 feet really what we're after? Like, will we need to add the 25%, what do you call it, condition in general? If 300 feet is what we're after, we could just go with that, or are we at any point would they be able to exceed 300 feet? If so, we just, if not, then I guess we're just saying 300 feet in general, right?
Well, I had mentioned the 25% because it sounds like each unit is 750 square feet. So if we, if one unit were 750 square feet and they're allowed 300 square feet of alcohol, that's, more than, so if they were to reduce the size, then that 25%, would kind of kick into.
Okay, that makes sense. I'm right there with you. Gotcha.
Okay. Everybody else okay with that? You are, okay. Okay, then, I will now formally close the public hearing on this item. Call on my fellow commissioners for a vote on the item.
Uh,
Do I have a motion?
I was trying to make sure if that was okay with the applicant. Yeah, if we can make sure that that's okay with the applicant.
Okay.
If I
I'm gonna go
could
ahead
try
and
to,
ask him,
Could-
if you can make the motion, and then I'll clarify what the conditions are, and then I'll ask the applicant if they agree to them. I just wanna get the conditions clear so that the applicant knows what we're doing. So I would prefer you just do the motion, and then I'll go ahead and ask him.
Okay.
Okay, someone make a motion?
Go ahead, Jason, since it's with your condition.
Okay. So yeah, I'll motion with the two conditions that we had mentioned. The one being the 25% maximum 300 square feet dedicated towards alcohol, and then the second one being that the alcohol be sold in packets instead of loose, cans or.
Okay, so the first one is that the display dedicated to alcohol sales be 25% of the space, usable space,
not to exceed 25%.
not to exceed 300 square feet.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
That contradicts.
Doesn't
It's, well, I hear 25%. I
Oh.
thought it was 15% that was the amount. It really depends on what the square footage is. So you could do 25%, or 300, whichever is greater. So that would give them more space. It might go beyond 300, but it might make more sense depending on how big.
I think it's
The
probably has to
area
be 25% or 300, whichever is less.
You want to do it whichever is less?
Yes.
Okay. Because 25%, how big is the space?
It's like 300 will always be less if it gets bigger, if the space gets bigger.
Yes.
So I think the thing to do is limit the size. So if he's saying that it's okay with 2,000, or just ask him what's the maximum size he would go. If it's 2,500, whatever that number is, put that number into the resolution, then give a percentage based on that number, not to exceed a certain amount or a square footage.
Right, because we're not sure what that number is, so it is a little hard to say. But it sounded like 300 was your max. But is that really your max when it could be 2,500 square feet? So do you want to ask the applicant what's the maximum that they think that they will go?
Well, I think the 25% or 300 square feet, whichever is less would work in this situation because we're trying to limit the amount of alcohol that we want on the site. So if they were to go, 4,000 square foot for their whole operation, then they would still be limited to the 300 square feet. And then if they were to go, say they want to change it to 750 square feet for the total liquor store, then they would be limited to the 25% instead of that 300.
Okay. So you want to do 25% or 300, whichever is less.
Yes.
So if it's a well,
I have an idea on how to construct it, so we can ask the applicant if he agrees with that. Then I'll construct the terms and then let you review it, and then we'll mail it to the commission for their final signature.
So what is your suggestion?
So the suggestion is to put it to say it as Jason is saying it, and then we'll make sure we put the language in that is enforceable, and then we'll let them see it, but with the spirit of knowing what it is that they're asking.
Well, I don't think I'm clear. I want to make sure that we have a condition.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So he's saying that he's saying that 300 feet is the max that they can have, not to exceed a certain percentage. So I understand that. So we're gonna go with the 300 feet, and we'll figure out a percentage based on the square footage that the applicant is submitting for the actual mini market.
So why don't we just put the condition as a maximum of 300 feet, period?
I mean, the point is,
The reason that Jason didn't want to do that is because if the mini mart ends up being 1,500 square feet or 1,000 square feet, then that's going to be more than 25% of the total space.
Yeah.
So without knowing what the final size is going to be, he's trying to give some flexibility to the applicant, but at the same time, he doesn't want to exceed the 300 square feet.
Yes.
Okay, then I still would suggest that we did it as whichever is less. So 25% or 25% not exceeding 300 square feet. So they can do 25%, but they can't exceed 300 square feet.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Is that what you're trying to say? So if it's 2,000, let's say it's 2,000 square feet that he's using, then that's 500 square feet. Unfortunately, he has to use, it can't be more than 300. so 300 is the max. If he's
Yes.
doing 1,000 square feet, then, he gets 1,000 square feet is 250.
Yeah.
He can do 250, but he can go up to 300.
Well, no.
Is that what you're
No,
trying
it's
to
whatever,
do?
whichever is
Jason?
less.
Right. So I think in that statement, what you'd say is if it's 1,000 square feet, they can do up to 250, which is 25%, and they can't do any
Yeah.
more after that.
Because that's the less out of the 25% and
That's why the original way I put it, I think, was 25%, or 300 feet, whichever is less,
yes,
right?
yes.
Okay. That I think will work as a condition. And then the other condition that you had was that there could be no sale, the sale of packages only, no individual alcohol sales, no individual items. I think we've had this as a condition before, so I can get
Yes,
that
we have.
language, but we have, I'm pretty sure we have. But that's what you'd like to add as a condition, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so with those two conditions, okay. So the motion is to add those two conditions. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. And so with the applicant now, Mr. Pornamdari, did you understand the conditions that are being added to the resolution?
Yes, I did.
Do you agree to them?
That's fine, sure, no problem.
Yes? Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'll turn it over to the chair for a vote. So actually,
Okay. Thank you. Would the secretary
back to me.
please call for the vote?
yeah, that would be me. Chairperson Smith,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Alshanable,
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz is absent. Commissioner Caraveo
Yes.
and Commissioner Richard.
Yes.
Okay. Which reminds me, I don't think we did roll call.
And I don't think we also voted on the minutes.
We didn't, actually.
Yes.
Oh, you know what? Okay, that's fine. That's okay. Roll call is not really necessary, and the minutes we can always move to the next meeting. So, okay. With this motion, the item passes. The resolution is approved 4-0, with one absent.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor, thank you,
Thank you, sir.
thank you, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. No new public hearings. There are no items. So we will recess the Planning Commission, call back to order the Airport Zoning Commission. Airport Zoning Commission consent calendar. There are no items. Airport Zoning Commission new continued public hearing. There are no items. Non-public hearing item. Number 1, Density Bonus Housing Agreement, amendment to application number 2015 DB03, 3857 West 139th Street. This is not a public hearing item. Pursuant to Chapter 17.17, the Planning Commission is required to review and approve density bonus housing agreements. Senior Planner Chris Palmer will present a staff report. Mr. Palmer? Mr. Palmer?
I think he's muted. Oh, there we go.
Sorry about that.
Back.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm going to give the Planning Commission a brief version of the staff report because this is the project that was actually approved and it's actually constructed. The issue comes about when the commission saw this project, it was for sale units, and the owner is doing rental units. When you're selling affordable housing units, you can sell them at an affordability level of moderate. If you're renting affordable units, you cannot rent them at a moderate level. You have to rent them at lower or a very low income. So the agreement before you today is adjusting the math. There's not a problem with the number of units. There's just an issue with the level of affordability that the renter will pay. And so this agreement settles it. They're going to be renting one affordable unit at a lower affordability, and that concludes the report. But I am available if you have questions.
Thank you. Does the planning commission have any questions for the staff? This is the time for questions of staff only, please.
Yes. Are the other units apartments as well, or are they condos?
The entire project is now an apartment building.
Okay.
Question, how many units are in this project?
12 units.
And of those 12 units, though, will only be one unit that's at the lower level, or
Yes.
is that based on the applicant, or is that based on the requirements of what they're legally required to do?
Both.
And then, so
The applicant asked for 2 additional units. In order to get the 2 additional units, 1 unit, or the total project, had to be at an affordability level of low income.
So the rest of the units will be placed at a level
Market rate.
They'll be a market rate.
and then when it was previously approved, was it only 1 unit that was dedicated towards low income, or was it 2?
Neither unit was for low income. 2 units were for moderate.
Okay.
So that's above. That's like the highest affordability level.
And would it be beneficial for the city to have the 2 units at moderate, or you're saying they can't have it at moderate because they're apartments?
The state law doesn't permit the city to negotiate 2 moderate rental units.
Even if that's what was
The code
proposed
specifically
before?
the code specifically says that if units are for sale, they can sell them at a moderate, but if they're for rent, they have to rent them at a lower affordability.
Okay.
Okay. So maybe I guess I missed that. So these units are for rent then?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is all based on state law, it's in our code as well, but it's based on state law. The portion that talks about affordability talks about moderate income only in the context of condominiums. That's why the previous approval from 2016 had this as a for sale moderate income project. And there's percentages that tell you how many you have to provide. So in state law, it says if you're doing rental, there's lower and very low, and there's percentages attached to those as well. And that's what he'd like to do now. He'd like to do a project that is for rent with lower affordability.
If these units were to go back to being condos, would that low income unit have to be a condo as well, or would it have to remain an apartment?
This project, if it's done this way, has an affordability covenant which requires that it stay affordable for, I want to say it's 35 years. So as long as they comply with the agreement and it is rented with the lower income unit for the 35 years, after that period is done, they don't have any additional obligations.
But if they wanted to sell it, and he wanted to sell it for a moderate, then the agreement would have to change to for sale units, and then the number of units will go up to 2 units again.
Okay.
That's right. And there would be additional documents that would be required. There would still be an affordability period, but the initial it's a little more complicated, but essentially there would still be requirements to make sure that the initial occupants of a for sale project, they would have to meet the moderate income requirements. And if it were sold, there would be a provision that says that some equity would come back to the city. Because presumably it would be sold to someone that does not meet the affordability, requirement. But this is for rent, so this is different.
If I may, through the chair, who enforces that it's being rented out for low income? How are we going to know?
Well, there's requirements in the agreement, and we as a city are going to be enforcing them. In fact, we have a consultant now that is going to be putting together a system for us to use, a platform, so that we can make sure that annual reports are submitted and other requirements are being met. They have to provide documentation regarding the income of the renters. So we're going to have a whole system to enforce, be able to enforce. But it's the city. The city will have that obligation.
Thank you.
And then does city council have to look at this after we do, or how
It does not.
Okay.
No, the code only requires that you approve it,
Okay.
or authorize the execution is technically what the code says.
And through the chair, you're gonna ask about the probably late communication on this one, and it's not a public hearing, but I did get a letter regarding this, and the letter came in today at approximately 4:49. So I'm just gonna read what the letter says. This is from Brianna Barragan. And it says, I will keep myself up to date with the lot and the agreement. The Modern Housing LLC is not insured by a title company per latest county records, which I attached. KIG Properties LLC and Modern Housing LLC are managed by the same member, ? William Hassan. If this agreement is executed and recorded, it will be for no value because Modern Housing LLC is not insured and should not be signing agreements to have recorded against the property. When ready to transfer title or sale the lot, the member of both LLCs, William Hassan, may transfer the title as KIG Properties LLC without your notice or approval. The agreement is being made with an LLC, not an individual. The 2 bonus units will be a profit at the time of the transfer, and they will be marketed at current market value. Not marketed for a low-income family. This does not benefit our community. Thank you. This concludes the letter.
But that it sounds like that was for like if it were condos, right? Because they're
I'm not sure
able to sell.
what the issue actually is with this, but I just read it because they have the right to be heard. And so, but like I said, the project is already built. It's under construction. Most of the units are likely rented already. And what this is doing is not changing the development, it's not changing the design, it's just changing the amount of affordability and the number of units that this affordability applies to.
I received a copy of that as well, and we'll do our due diligence to make sure that we have the appropriate party signing and executing the agreement. In fact, your approval would allow the city attorney's office to be able to make any changes as long as they're not substantive, and there's no changes to the bonus or to any of the quote-unquote deal points of this project. And I know there are provisions in the agreement that talk about transferring and not being able to transfer property back and forth. So I'll review that, and I can make changes to that as appropriate. And I would think that's not substantive, and I can go ahead and make those changes, or I would argue that they're not substantive. So I will look into it to make sure that, again, it's a little unclear what the issue is, and the attachment itself doesn't really give me a lot of information about, she's talking about title insurance, but I will, I'm definitely going to look into it. So I can't provide any other information because it did come in very late.
And then the approval and the agreement, that would run with the land, it wouldn't run with
It,
the
it
owner.
does, yeah, it's,
Yeah.
exactly, it's a covenant, it runs with the land.
Okay.
Okay, is the applicant here?
This is not
Is that
They were
Amy
calling
Shepherd?
in,
Melissa, is that Amy Shepherd?
yes, it is,
Yes, she's in the waiting room. Would you like me to let her in?
please, yes.
Okay.
Are they able to hear from the waiting room?
No, it shouldn't be.
I don't
Only if
know,
they're watching it on the cable TV or the
Oh,
cable.
okay.
yeah, okay, that makes sense.
It's a delay.
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Great, I get to hear myself again. Awesome.
I can hear you guys.
Okay,
We can hear you.
Okay, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions for you. Do you have any questions for me?
I'm not sure who you are.
Oh, I represent KIG Properties and Modern Housing LLC, the applicant.
Oh, okay. So do you wish to say anything to us or not? Just,
Well,
Were
I'm
you-
just here to
were you
answer
listening
questions
in
if you
on-
have questions. I think I can clarify on the pricing, just so you guys have a little bit of background information from the brokerage side. In terms of market rate and moderate affordability, those tend to be on trend right now around the same price for the city of Hawthorne. So, for example, the rents that I would recommend for this building would be somewhere in the range of $3,000 and $3,300. The affordability in the moderate category would put this at $3,100, $3,300. So by moving us into the low income category, it is going to be a steep rent discount for the person who will receive the unit. And then just to add, I think there's some confusion on Modern Housing and KIG. William Hassan is the owner of both. We, on our new construction that we built that all in the LLC of Modern Housing. The older construction that we have, our older stock that's held by KIG. KIG manages both Modern Housing properties and KIG properties. We worked with Section 8 previous to the law changing. We're currently working with veterans using the HUD-VASH vouchers to get them into our properties. So I don't think there's anything nefarious on Mr. Hassan's side about transferring properties or anything of that nature.
Okay. Do any of my fellow commissioners have any final comments on the item or questions from staff? Any questions from staff?
Through the chair, just asking if, I know we received the letter or correspondence pretty late. Is there any way that could be distributed amongst the commissioners as well for our review?
I'll
Yeah,
mail it. I'll
you can-
email it to you.
Yeah.
I'll email it to all the commissioners.
Thank
Could you also, Chris, mail a copy to the applicant and the applicant's representative?
Okay. We'll do.
In regards to the title, can you guys still hear me? In regards to the title, there would be, on any kind of construction loan, Mr. Hassan would be named on both, so I can't imagine there's not a title policy.
Okay. Okay, I now call on my fellow commissioners for a vote on this item. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay. There's been a motion made and a second. Will the secretary please call for the vote?
Yes, thank you. Chairperson Smith,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Alshanable,
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz is absent. Commissioner Caraveo,
Yes.
Commissioner Richard.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion, to approve resolution number 2020-09, an amendment to application number 2015 DB03, authorizing execution of a density bonus housing agreement, passes, with a vote of 4 in favor and, 1 person absent.
Okay, thank you. We'll now call back to order the Planning Commission concurrently with the Airport Zoning Commission. Administrative items.
I know.
Either
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
no, on the,
Commissioner reports. Commissioners, do you have any reports you'd like to give?
I would like to say something.
Sure. Go
Um,
ahead.
okay, so, with all the tragic events that are happening nowadays, and the tragic murder of George Floyd, I just want to say that sometimes we think of events that may have happened in the past and we think, oh, if I were there, I would have done this, I would have done that. I think that this is one of these moments. And I think it's about time for us to stand up and make a change. It's not just about being there for each other. It's about making that change. And we as people in position of, in politics or position of power compared to others, I think that there should be a systematic reform. I do acknowledge that there are a lot of good cops, but one bad cop is one too many. So I really, I don't know how I can do this. I don't know how I can start on it, but we need to start reforming who enters the police force. Are they being screened enough? Do we have enough resources to make sure that something like this never happens again in the 21st century? So I know that I'm just, beginning with this, but we have the responsibility to make it change, not just talk, not just stand up. We have the responsibility to make that change. And my heart goes out to his family, to anyone that has suffered from this. And I hope that we are able to make that change. Thank you.
Thank you, Rula. This is very, very excellent. Anyone else? Gentlemen?
Yes, I agree with Commissioner Ashnabli. And I know this is an issue that's on a very large scale, and we might feel like, oh, we can't resolve this, for everybody. But I do believe that we can do something at least within, our community, and then at least, hopefully that City of Hawthorne PD is willing to, work with us on creating some type of solution or resolution to this issue, at least at, our local level. Maybe come up with some guidelines or conditions for police officers when they're dealing with people, and having certain repercussions for those few officers that are considered the bad apples of the bunch, because we do know that there are a lot of good police officers, and they also have their own families to go home to. So we just want a compromise from from both ends. This is a city of good neighbors, and we want to make sure that we're good neighbors to our police officers, and the police officers are good neighbors to us.
Yes, thank you. Very eloquently put. I feel that Kobe was holding the world together. Since Kobe was holding the world together.
Okay.
Everything
Wow.
went downhill.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's
Comments
it.
you'd like to
Um,
make?
But I also, sorry. Yeah, if you're, I would like to make a report as well. I want to also say I echo the sentiments of both of the commissioners who spoke before me. I appreciate you for using your platform to take this time and actually speak out about that. I would like to add to that I believe we as the city of Hawthorne do consider ourselves a city of good neighbors. And I think this is a great time for us as a city to step out as good neighbors and be good neighbors to those members of our community who've been oppressed and have experienced mistreatment at the hands of the police. I think what we can do specifically here is incentivize our police officers to see something and say something. I think as good neighbors, we have the ability to do that, to speak out when we feel, when we see something that's incorrect, that we can step in and make that move. As this Hawthorne Police Department has been on the leading edge of trying to be as inclusive and supportive as it possibly could of our communities. You see that through the Coffee with a Cop program that has made it all the way around the world. I think we have an obligation to step up and come out with a plan around AB 392 that was asked for us to do by 2 months ago. And I think it's important that we can be that shining star, that jewel of the South Bay that the city is. We can do that and step forward and show the other police departments that we still know how to be good neighbors, because we are good neighbors. And I think it's very important. And again, I would like to really appreciate everyone who made the statements here. My heart goes out to those protesters who have been injured throughout this peaceful process. I have friends who've been personally injured throughout this process, and it's a very personal thing to me. And I'm sorry, but I thank you guys for allowing me to have this time to speak on this part. Outside of that, I did have a question that I wanted to pose to Melissa. I know we were requested to communicate only through our city emails, and I know we all received that email, and I just haven't seen how we're supposed to do that yet. So we need some clarification on that. That'd be great.
Yes, I will send you the email, Commissioner. There's it's how do I put it? It's Outlook, so there's a way to access that from a phone or a computer, so I'll send that to you. But remember, I always send everything to both emails. So if you can't access your city email, I'm still sending it to your personal email too.
I thought, yeah, I gotcha. I'm sorry. I thought from the email you wanted us to start officially communicating that way. I just wanted to make sure we weren't violating any rules or anything like that.
No, it's really more for you because of records issues. But if you're more comfortable with your personal email, you can go ahead and use that. But if you'd like to be able to access city email, just to keep everything kind of straight, we'll get you that access.
Okay.
I'll send you the email so that you can access it.
Thank you.
Can you send it to me too as well?
Yes, I will resend that email.
Thank you.
I'd like to follow up with comments I've heard tonight from other commissioners, and I agree with all of you. And but I have to tell you one thing, that some of you may not know this, but I've lived in Hawthorne for 82 years. Don't want to get myself too old here. Anyway, 82 years, 2 different locations, and I've been through. This is the 3rd thing that's come up that has really damaged people, and I'm really beginning to realize that it's 2 separate factions. You got the people that really want to have a very peaceful protest, and they're doing it. Before I came here tonight on the news, they said about 5,000 people, but I don't know. It looked like about double that amount outside of the City Hall and outside of where the DA, the District Attorney's office is. And I'm thinking, look at all their people are sitting there, and they're not causing a problem, just quietly protesting. I mean, oh yeah, they're voicing their comments and all, but that's still quietly protesting. And I realize that everybody has to think about the fact it's 2 separate factions, and we don't need to talk about the people that are trying to do the peaceful protest. We need to get in with them, because everybody especially in Los Angeles, is so much of a multitude of different nationalities, different ethnics, and these people enjoy living in Los Angeles, so we have to really work together, I think. So anyway, I'm very, very sad of what I've seen this time, And I've seen it 2 other times. And, you know, we gotta change it now and not say, well, we can do it another time. No, there is no other time. It's gotta be done now. Anyway, that's my comments. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. And anybody that's watching in, thank you. And since there isn't anything further from the commissioners, then these meetings are adjourned at 7:08 p.m. Thank you, folks, for being here.
Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Chair.
Good night.
Thank you.